In step 1, we learned how to audit the information security policy. In step 2, we need to audit the controls around the application. For step 2, we need to have following information from the auditee. Name of the application, purpose of the application, application owner, categorization, factor of authentication, password complexity, BAPT reports, status of the reports, source code review, status of the source code review, user access review. Okay, so now let us understand how to audit and validate each data field. Let us assume that we received following information from the auditee. This is the information that has been received from the auditee. Okay, so they are having A, B, C, D applications, purpose of application, and so on. Now, name and purpose of the application is for your information. Okay, so as such, no major audit aspect in these two data field. Let us move to next data field, that is application owner. As a best practice, each application needs to have a dedicated owner. Owner is responsible and accountable for the risk and control related to that particular application. To the extent possible, owner should be an individual rather than a group or a department. Individual ownership will ensure better accountability. Now let us check what is the requirement in information security policy. Let us open information security policy. Okay, so here this is information security policy. Now let us search for ownership. Okay, so this policy for asset categorization, there is one clause each asset should have a dedicated owner. To the extent possible, ownership should be assigned to an individual having appropriate level of authority. Asset owner is responsible for managing the risk related to asset. So as per information security policy, for each type of asset, they need to have a dedicated owner. So now let us check if owners are defined or not. Okay, so here owners are defined, and if you check, owners are individual and not a group or a department. So this is okay. If owners are not defined, or if owners are defined in such a way that there is no individual accountability, then you need to report this as an audit observation. However, in this case, let us consider this as complied and highlight with green color, because ownership already being defined and owners are individual. Okay, so now let us move to the next data field and understand how to audit and validate application categorization. Application categorization. Application categorization means categorization of an application on the basis of its criticality. First, let us check what is the requirement in information security policy. Let us open information security policy. So this is the information security policy of the organization. Now, what we require is categorization. So let us find for asset category. Okay, so clause number 16 is the area of our interest. Okay, so here if you can see, application and database should be categorized, and it should be categorized on the basis of following nomenclature. critical, and other important. Now let us check whether organization has categorized all of its application. So let us start with application A. Okay, this is being categorized as critical. B. Oh, it seems that we have an observation over here. Application B is not categorized. So let us highlight this with a red color. Application C categorized as important. Application D categorized as critical. Okay. So also for application A, C and D, we need to refer the documentation to validate whether categorization is correct. So if you see here, critical application are those applications where recovery time objective is less than or equal to 2 days. And important or other important applications are those applications where recovery time objective is more than 2 days. So we need to have some documentation to ensure that categorization is done correctly. So you would like to refer the documentation to validate that. Okay. Now let us assume you get the documentation and then you are satisfied with the categorization. So let us make this as complied, complied and complied. So application A, C and D is complied, wherein we need to write audit observation for application B. Let us quickly draft the audit observation. So we will use the same audit report format that we discussed in our previous lecture. Okay, so these are the observation that we drafted in our previous lectures. Now let us add one more observation. Observation number 3. Now here domain is, our step 2 is about application control. Okay, so as I told you, this particular audit observation will be divided into 3 parts. First part is what is the requirement of information security policy. Second part is what is the factual position, and third part is evidence from which you derive the factual position. Okay, so let us quickly draft the report. This is the requirement. This is the requirement of information security policy, that all the application and database of the organization should be categorized. Okay, so let us add what is your observation. However, we noted that application B is not categorized by the organization. So this is the fact. And third part is how you derive this particular fact, on the basis of data provided by the management. So if you see in this Excel, management has specifically written that application B is not categorized. Okay, so this is our audit observation. Now what is the risk over here? Risk is basically in absence of categorization, asset may not be appropriately protected. So an important application might be given more weightage and might be overprotected, or a critical application might be underprotected. So that is the risk. As this is non-compliance to internal process, let us consider this as medium. As I already told you, this is very subjective and it depends on your organization's overall risk appetite. So suggestion will be application B should be appropriately categorized. Okay, so this is our audit observation. With this, we have completed application categorization. Let us now discuss about factor of authentication. Factor of authentication. As an IS auditor, you need to have basic understanding of factor of authentications. There are three types of factor of authentication. First one, what you know. For example, you know your password, you know your PIN. Okay, so these are the first level of authentication. Second one, what you have. For example, you receive OTP in your mobile device and this OTP changes every time. So this is what you have. Okay, so OTP, one type password, is what you have. Another example of what you have is a smart card. On the basis of smart card, you can take access to the system or device. So smart card is something you have. Third one, what you are. Example, biometric features such as fingerprint, retina scanner, etc. So your body features, what you are. That is the third factor of authentication. Now let us check the requirement for factor of authentication in information security policy. Let us open information security policy of the organization. So this is the information security policy. What we are interested is about factor of authentication. Let us search for factor of so straight away we are getting the clause 17, that is factor of authentication. So if you see, application and database should have following factor of authentication. Okay, now if application is critical, it should have minimum 2 level of authentication, and if application is other than critical, then it should have minimum 1 level of authentication. Okay, so this is the requirement of information security policy. Now let us check what is being actually implemented. Okay, so we need to check over here application A. This is critical and it has 2 level of authentication. This is good. This is not categorized and they are also having 2 level of authentication, so fine. Even if it is critical, they require 2 level of authentication. This is important and it is only password, that is only one factor, and fine, because important application is required minimum 1 level of authentication, and here they are having it. Application D is about critical, and here also they are having only 1 level of authentication. So this is the area of concern. If you see, critical need to have minimum 2 level of authentication, but here we have only 1 level of authentication. So first let us validate this and let us make this red. Now before we write the audit observation, you need to check this. So at least you need to check this by a process walkthrough. So you ask any employee for this particular application how they get access, and when they get access you check the process. Okay, and then validate whether factor of authentication has been deployed as per the requirement. Now here we will quickly draft the audit observation. So this is our audit report. This is the same audit report that we discussed in our previous lecture. These are the audit observations. Okay, to save the time, I have already drafted the audit observation. So my first point is, or my first part is to write the requirement. So this is the requirement of information security policy. Okay, my second part is I need to write the factual position. So what I am writing is, we noted that application D has only single factor of authentication even though same is categorized as critical. And my third part is I need to write the source of evidence. So source of evidence is basically my process walkthrough. Process walkthrough means when that particular employee will be taking the access, I will be observing that particular process. So that is process walkthrough. Okay, so this is the risk. Application D may not be given appropriate level of protection. Risk type, it's always subjective. Let us have medium over here. And recommendation for second factor of authentication. This is simple. Okay, now let us move to next data field, that is password complexity. Password complexity. Password complexity means use of capital letter, special character, minimum length of password, etc. First, we need to check what is the requirement of information security policy. Let us open information security policy. Okay, fine. So this is the clause 18 of information security policy, wherein password complexity has been defined. Clause 18 of information security policy. Now here two aspects with respect to password complexity. One is for all the application and database, and another one is for Windows login. Windows login we will check and validate when we'll be doing the audit of desktop control. Currently our area of interest is password complexity for all the application. So these are the rules defined. Minimum 1 lowercase, minimum 1 uppercase, minimum 1 special character, and minimum length of 8 digit. Okay, now to evaluate this, whether all these parameters are actually deployed in application, we need to ask the system administrator, to show us the backend dashboard for password parameter in the application. Please note that you cannot do it directly. You need to have help and support from system administrator. So each application may have different background. For your reference, we have given some sample as reference document number 4. Let me open this for you. Okay, so this is one of the example screenshot of the backend for any particular application, wherein you can see the password setting. Now please understand, each application may have different backend and different dashboard. So it depends on application to application. Okay, so what you need to do is to compare this particular application with respect to this particular requirement. So here password must contain minimum 1 lowercase. So you need to check whether this has been enabled or not. Okay, so accordingly you need to validate all the parameters. I hope I am clear. This is the simple comparison between what is required and what is being implemented. Okay, now let us discuss the next point, that is VAPT report. VAPT reports. VAPT stands for Vulnerability Assessment and Penetration Testing. Let us first check what is the requirement of information security policy. Let us open information security policy of the organization. So this is the information security policy, and our area of interest is VAPT. Okay, so this is the clause with respect to VAPT. So here the frequencies are given for conduct of VAPT with respect to different infrastructure. So if your infrastructure is categorized as critical, you need to conduct VAPT minimum once every year. If infrastructure is categorized as other important, you need to get your VAPT done minimum once every 2 years. For network infrastructure and other devices, VAPT is required minimum once every year. So this is the requirement of information security policy. Now let us check whether actual it has been done or in actual VAPT is conducted. So we are in year 2022. Okay. So application A, B, C, D. Application A is within 1 year. Okay. You validate this. This is okay. This is okay. But and here we have an observation. What is the observation? VAPT is not conducted in year 2019, year 2020, and year 2021. Okay, but this is basic data provided by the organization. So you need to ask the detailed report of the VAPT and cross verify the dates. Okay, so you need to have some documentation to validate this date. So let us assume you got all the documentation and dates are matching. So we have A, B, C as compliant and application D as not compliant. So let us quickly draft audit observation for application D. We'll be using same information system audit report format. To save the time, I have already drafted the audit observation. As I told you earlier, 3 part to an audit observation. First one is you write the requirement. So this clause 20 I have captured or I have taken from information security policy. Okay, then this is my observation or this is the factual position. We observed that VAPT for application D was last conducted in January 18. VAPT not conducted for year 2019, 20 and 21. So this you verified from VAPT reports and but obvious you discuss this with the management. So what is the risk? Vulnerability may remain undetected and might be exploited by the hacker. Risk level, I have considered this as high because for 3 years vulnerability assessment and penetration testing was not conducted and risk is high. So this is your recommendation. Okay, so now let us discuss next data field, that is number of open observation for VAPT report. VAPT open observation. Let us first check what is the requirement of information security policy. Okay, so VAPT open observation means the observations that are not closed within the approved timeline. Observations which are not remediated within the approved timeline. Let us open information security policy. Okay, so this is the information security policy. What I need to validate is what are the remediation timeline for VAPT. Okay, so this clause 20 is about VAPT. Within this clause, okay, within this clause, this particular defined remediation timelines are given. If vulnerability is critical, it should have been closed within 7 days, high 30 days, medium 45 days, low 60 days. So this is the requirement of information security policy. Now let us validate this and compare this with data provided by the organization. Here if you see, I still have one observation as open. Now let us assume my date of audit is 31st December 2022. So this particular observation is open since 1st January 2022 and date of audit is 31st December. So this is open from more than 300 days. Okay, and these particular observations are closed, so this is good. But then you need to validate this all this figure from the audit closure report that has been submitted to the senior management. So you need to compare this figure with the figure that has been reported to the senior management in form of some documentation. Okay, so now these are compliant. For this we need to write the audit observation. Let us quickly draft the audit observation. This is the same information system report that we are discussing. Okay, I have already drafted the observation. Now, as I said, first part is requirement, so this is the requirement. Second part is factual position. So what we noted is one critical vulnerability for application A is still open. In bracket you write the date of your review or your audit for more than 300 days, and you derive this particular observation from your VAPT closure report. Your risk vulnerability might be exploited by hacker. Now, this risk depends on the type of vulnerability. If vulnerability that is identified vulnerability is critical and if it is open more than 300 days, risk is high. If identified vulnerabilities is of low nature, low severity, so you can make this risk as low. So it depends on the identified vulnerability. Okay, so this is your recommendation statement. Okay, so let us now move to next data element, that is source code review. Source code review report. Source code review is a manual or automated process that examines an application source code. The objective of this examination is to identify any existing security flaws or vulnerabilities. So here also let us first check what is the requirement of information security policy. Let us open information security policy and let us try to check if we have anything on source code. Yes, so clause 21 is on source code review. Okay, so now let us check the frequency. If application is critical, minimum once in a year. For other applications, minimum once every 2 years. Okay, so this is the requirement. Now let us check the actual source code date. So for all the applications, source code review was conducted in the year January 2020. So if this is our audit year, every application is reviewed in the current year itself. So you can consider SAM as compliant. However, you need to validate this date by obtaining latest source code reports and checking the dates. You need to cross verify the dates from actual source code report. Now, next point is open observation with respect to source code review. As such, here no observations are open. You can consider SAM as compliant. However, please ask for the closure report submitted to the senior management and validate the number of closed observation and compare the same with this particular data provided by the organization. Okay, so you need to have some documentation to validate this information. As an additional audit checkpoint, you can also call timelines for closure of each vulnerability and compare the same with remediation timelines mentioned in the information security policy. Report all the vulnerabilities which are not closed within the timelines. Okay, So now let us discuss next data field, that is auditing the user access review. User access review. A user access review is a periodic inventory of the access rights to applications in the database and the users who have access permissions into these applications and database. So basically it looks at who is accessing what level of access they have, and if they have any valid reason for such access. So first let us check what is the requirement in information security policy. Let us open information security policy. Okay, so information security policy, uh, user access review is our area of interest. Okay, so clause 22 speaks about user access review. Application owner is responsible to ensure all the access to the application is current and appropriate. User access review need to be conducted on annual basis as per this format. Okay, this is the format for UAR. So this is the requirement of information security policy. Now let us check for each application whether user access review is conducted on annual basis. So we are into 2022 and UAR is for January 2022. So for the year 2022 all the UAR has been conducted. Okay. Please obtain sample report of user access review and validate the same against the dates provided over here. So some documentation is required to validate whether the dates provided here are correct and accurate. Okay, so you can also, while collecting the information, you can also check whether this particular user access review is being maintained in particular format and is being appropriately signed by the application owner. Okay, so these are the checkpoints that you need to validate while auditing the application controls. Please note these are the basic checkpoints. You may like to add your own checkpoints considering the overall risk environment of your organization. In our next lecture, we will discuss about step 3, that is auditing the database control. Thank you.